Hello and welcome to another installment of Sci-Fi-Night Ranking. So, it's the month of Halloween, obviously our content matches, and there's no better time to talk about the Halloween series. So, there will be some minor spoilers, but nothing too big. Debuting in 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween was a landmark film for horror, slasher horror in particular. It changed the way horror movies were made and gave us a total of 10 films to rank, so let's get right to it with the number 10 spot and the absolute worst. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from 2009. Yeah, the sequel to the remake, which kind of branches off in its own story, whatever. Okay, so I have to be true to myself, and I just can't stand this film. I can appreciate and respect Rob Zombie wanting to try something different with a sequel and making his own story, but this feels like all style over substance. In it, we follow Laurie after her first film, as she and everyone else turns into a horribly written, unlikable asshole.
Michael Myers is fucking dead! Now, do you brain-dead gossip mongers want me to spell that out for you? D-E-A-D!
20 minutes of a film is just a dream, there's so little that actually makes sense, and the movie's just unpleasant. Everyone and everything is just grimy, unappealing, and nonsensical. The only likable characters are treated like shit, and for as nice as the film looks and for all the ambition there is, in my opinion, it just kind of fell apart in an overly violent and convoluted mess.
Only a river of blood can bring us together again.
This brings us to the number 9 spot and the most laughable entry, 2002's Halloween Resurrection. So this film not only ruins the great conclusion of Halloween H2O,
You need to get the hell out of here!
but not only does it kill off Laurie Strode in the beginning,
I'll see you in hell.
but this is the legendarily bad film in which Busta Rhymes has a battle with Michael Myers.
Trick or treat, motherfucker!
Basically, a bunch of people get locked up in the so-called Michael Myers house in some dumbass reality TV thing, and proceed to get picked off one by one in a really, really lame film that only manages to be better than the number 10 spot, for it at least being so bad it's funny.
You know what? That's not right, okay?
Unfortunately, it doesn't really accomplish much else.
No! No!
The number 8 spot goes to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995. Halloween 4, 5, and 6 brought in a bit of its own storyline, and part 6 finishes it off in what is basically just one big hot mess.
I rest my case.
The film follows Michael Myers returning to Haddonfield to go after his niece, Jamie Lloyd, along with a mysterious cult. So yeah, the whole cult storyline is ridiculous and doesn't really work. There's a huge mistake made by killing a certain character, and the well-documented extensive damaging reshoots and production problems are very clear.
Oh yeah? Well, who the hell asked you to come back here in the first place?
Paul Rudd is in it, and is actually kind of okay, but the film is just a chopped up mess of silly plot points, and while it kind of has a cozy feel to it, and some parts I do kind of like, it's still one of the worst.
It's not working.
This brings us to the number 7 spot, Rob Zombie's Halloween remake, released in 2007. So this film suffers from not really knowing if it wants to be an origin story or a remake, so it does both, but doesn't really do either all that well.
Yeah, and whose fault is that? Oh my God, you're pathetic.
The film does have some good parts, interesting things to say about child abuse and how we're shaped by our surroundings, as well as some actually pretty good shots and cinematography, but oh my god, everyone is an unlikable white trash jerk and everything is just so dreary and ugly.
Maybe I'll choke the chicken, purge my snorkel all over them flappy ass tits.
Good, we'll have a good fucking time.
I will.
I hope she likes cripples.
Bitch, I will crawl over there and I will skull fuck the shit out of you.
Oh, I'll get the crutches for you.
I mean, I get it, the whole unlikable white trash thing is kind of Rob Zombie's thing, but that doesn't mean it works every time. This is one of a few movies where you actually kind of root for Michael Myers because of how irritating everyone else is. I mean, not only does the movie frustrate me, but it actually manages to confuse me. Am I supposed to root for Michael Myers? What's the deal? Now, this film does have a lot of potential, and while I do like it more than the first time I saw it, it's still mostly just okay in my book, which is at the end of the day still a disappointment for me.
I hate you.
And I hate you too. You see this? As soon as this heals, I'm gonna break it again on your fucking face.
Enough, all right? Can we just eat him?
The number 6 spot goes to 1989's Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. So this film follows Michael Myers' niece, Jamie, trying to deal with the memories of her psycho uncle just as he returns to Haddonfield. Unfortunately, this film ditches the surprisingly good ending of Halloween 4 and goes in kind of a weird direction that definitely didn't benefit the overall story.
Crazy son of a bitch.
This film has some weird writing and pacing that's just off and doesn't really work. The whole psychic link thing could have been pulled off in the right hands, but it's not really done here.
She was shaking. Her whole body was shaking.
Every time a little girl twitches, I'm supposed to call out the National Guard.
How many people did he kill last year? Have you forgotten?
However, there is something oddly charming about it though that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe the fact that it dares to try something a little bit off. This is a pretty sleepy entry in the series that has a few good moments, but overall doesn't work all that well.
Your own daughter? I don't. No, of course you don't forget. How could you? You never looked into his face, did you? You never saw his eyes. You never saw that nothing, no expression.
This brings us to the number 5 spot and the first entry that I truly like, 1982's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. So we've already talked about this film in our top 5 films to watch on Halloween video, but yes, Michael Myers isn't in it, but he wasn't supposed to be either. It was supposed to be a completely different story, and as long as you can deal with that, you get a really fun kind of silly but creative flick that just embodies so many elements of a Halloween holiday.
You don't really know much about Halloween.
In it, we follow a sinister plot taking place in a small town with huge ramifications, and it's just an overall enjoyable 80s film with a lot of great moments, good practical effects, and a song that will never leave your brain.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
Sure, it's a black sheep of the series, but it accomplishes what it tries to do, and in my opinion, remains an underrated, overlooked, and weird entry in the series.
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. Happy Halloween. Stop it!
The number 4 spot appropriately goes to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers from 1988, the first film to skip the Roman numerals for some reason. So, this film returns to the Michael Myers formula after fans rejected Halloween 3 upon release.
Maybe nobody knows how to stop him.
And to be honest, I feel like they did the best they could with what they had.
Timing's gotta be primo.
Yeah, well, money talks and bullshit walks, you know what I mean?
I don't really get all the hate for this film. Sure, the 2 sequels were bad and relied too much on Dr. Loomis, but there are some interesting ideas here. In it, we follow Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd, playing Laurie Strode's daughter, and she's actually great in this and the sequels. Once again, they tried to steer away from Michael Myers at the end of his film, and did that pretty well with an ending that takes a risk, and in my opinion, pulls it off in the best way possible. Basically, with so much going against it, Halloween 4 manages to battle through adversity in the best way it could, and delivers a pretty fun entry in the series.
They've survived this ordeal. They'll survive its memory.
The number 3 spot goes to 1981's Halloween 2. After that Halloween blew up all around the world, of course a sequel was made, and it actually works pretty well. The movie picks up right after the end of Halloween, and that energy and pacing really works to the film's advantage.
Sally, I can hear the sirens coming.
They said the guy got away.
Do they know who it was?
No.
Oh, God.
Director Rick Rosenthal tried his best to mimic the shots and atmosphere of the first, and did an okay job. I mean, the film does stagnate in terms of pacing, but introducing Laurie Strode as Michael Myers' sister and beginning the whole Myers family storyline actually stands as one of the strengths of the film, and the added blood and gore definitely doesn't hurt either. I wish Laurie was in it a little bit more. It was never going to be as good as the original, but we all kind of knew that, and overall, this is just a pretty damn solid sequel that goes out with a bang.
Bud's gone. Mrs. Alves is gone. We gotta find Laurie. All right, listen, why don't you check the East Wing again?
Alright, we're close to the top with a number 2 spot, which goes to 1998's Halloween H2O. You know, it's strange that the 7th entry in the film, released 20 years after the original, actually wraps up the storyline better than any of the previous sequels. In it, our original protagonist is still dealing with the trauma of the first 2 films, and even 2 decades later as a functioning alcoholic, until her long-lost brother returns. Finally, Jamie Lee Curtis reprised her role, and she did so in style as a flawed, rich, and believable character with a strong story arc that goes from helpless victim to fragile survivor to strong, powerful heroine. They skipped all the silly cult and curse of the thorn stuff, and while not everything works, overall they returned to both the franchise and the original characters in the best way possible, as it brought back what was good with the original while also modernizing this entry with a strong finish that should have been the end to the series. Now it wasn't, but that just makes it the best Halloween sequel ever. The number 1 spot should come as no surprise to anyone watching this. Obviously, it's the 1978 original Halloween. In what could very well be the film that I've talked about the most times on this channel. And what more could possibly be said about it? It was one of the first movies to scare the crap out of me. It was a magical explosion of talent, ambition, and luck. It was made for only $30,000 and became an iconic staple of horror.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
As I'm sure you know, it follows the escaped psycho Michael Myers as he returned to his hometown to do what he did the last time he was there as a boy, well, kill people.
Michael?
This is a film that is a solid slow burn of good shots, performances, direction, and a climax that is, honestly, legendary when it comes to horror slasher cinema. Aspiring filmmakers need to watch this to see how far you can go with limited funds.
It's a horror flick with a guy with a mask. I mean, who's gonna watch that?
The short answer? Everyone.
Oh yeah, and for those who don't know, the makers of the film took a chance when it came to the mask, and they simply risked it by picking a white William Shatner mask, a risk that paid off as it became iconic, and just like the rest of the film, it'll always be remembered. I mean, yeah, this is an excellent film with such good atmosphere. It has to be number 1, and I don't see any other film knocking it off.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
So that about does it for this episode of Sci-Fi-Night Ranking. We hope you enjoyed it. If you've got a different ranking, instead of telling me I'm an idiot, how about telling me what your ranking looks like in the comments below? Yeah, let's check it out, let's compare, and let's have a nice fun little Halloween discussion. So as always, I'm your host, Sebastian Vendel-Martinez, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy